Novotny to start us off today. Cindy, welcome.
Okay, so again, good morning to my friends in Melbourne and in Sydney, and afternoon to Singapore. I would ask now that everybody please mute your phones because it's very difficult for people to hear. There's a lot of background noise. So can you please mute your phones before we start? Excellent. Thank you. That was brilliant. Okay, so I would like to again follow up on what Mark just said. My name is Cindy Novotny. I have been a part of IACC since the very beginning. I work for a company called Master Connection Associates based in the States, but we had a team just in Sydney a couple weeks ago. I just came back from Hong Kong and Singapore, so we spend a great deal of time in Asia as well. I have on the phone with me also Adam Morgan, who with Shelley Marlowe, who's on the call, are heading up and working with Mark and the IACC team on creating some of these educational webinars and in-person trainings that we're going to be doing throughout Europe and throughout the Asia-Pacific region. So the most important subject when you think about the International Association of Conference Centers is to focus on your story. The IACC story has gotten blurred over the years. There was a time when it slowed down a bit and there wasn't as robust messaging. And Mark Cooper has taken this on with a vengeance and is making sure that we really wrap our heads around how to make a difference with selling the IACC story. So when you really take a look at what this actually means, and you think about IACC, and you think about the brands and the trends and how you differentiate your product right now, whether you have a very atypical corporate conference center or you have more of a resort type of hotel conference center, you have to remember that how you set yourself apart from all the noise and all the mass marketing and all the marketing that is done online is really a tough job. So regardless of who you're here representing, whether you're with the Sundial Group or Dolce or MGSM or Aramark or Lansmore, every one of you have distinguishing differences. Well, the IACC certification is a huge distinguishing difference that many properties, I know here in the States, I just came back from an IACC certified property in northern Michigan, and I'm helping them to understand the value and what the IACC certification really does to make their resort and their meeting space stand out against everybody else. The other big point I want to make here, because this is a sales webinar, it's part of a series of webinars we're going to be doing, is that it is very important that every salesperson, every event manager, conference planner, whatever title you call anyone in your conference center or hotel, that you individually and personally bring value to a meeting planner and to the corporate attendees. See, today, the world of just relationship selling is no longer good enough. We cannot just rely on how to make that individual difference if we're not standing out. So I want you to think a little bit about the business climate. And I want you to think about the fact that we are a global world. I just got off the phone yesterday speaking to Goldman Sachs and to Oracle, both about events in Sydney. And they want to do, 4-hour quick meetings to talk about differentiating their brand. They want to bring all their people together in Sydney and do this. And everything they're talking about is how they will set themselves apart from the masses. Well, if our clients are coming into our centers and they're talking about this every day, we have to look in the mirror and actually say to ourselves, what are we doing to separate ourselves from the masses? You also have to remember that the typical hotel that you're competing with, the Four Seasons, the Westins, the Hyatt, all the brands, the Marriott, every brand of every hotel is copying the packaging, is copying the CMP model. Because what they're trying to do is figure out a way to have that one price point that in today's world is so compelling to a customer because it makes it so much easier on the fiscal strategic meetings management when they have to be able to show their performance to their senior leadership. So I look at some of this copying as almost a form of flattery. I look at it as, you know, that's great, they want to copy us, but those of you on this call, if you are, and you're all part of IACC, if you just sit back in your easy chair and say, well, I mean, anybody can come up with a complete meeting package, then you're not fighting hard enough. You're not challenging the status quo. See, what will the customer remember? Will the customer remember that somebody just threw a package together, or will they remember what you really, really are offering? So I know we've only got between 45 minutes and an hour, and that's not a lot of time. So I really honestly want you to focus. You can have a copy of this PowerPoint. We're recording the call, as Mark said. So I want to make sure that we have a lot of focus on what we're going to try to accomplish. So when I look at IACC and I look at why IACC makes a lot of sense, I always come back to some of the same topics. One of the biggest issues is that we fundamentally have got to look at our own teams. And I want you all to make a note right now. I mean, regardless if you're the leader, the sales leader, the general manager, whoever you are, and I want you to think, what do we have to improve on? Are we sending customized proposals? Are we answering the phone in a professional manner? Do we have a sense of urgency? Are we working with the customer within a time zone that they want to talk? You know, as Mark's on the phone, and it's, you know, what, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and it doesn't matter. He's still on the phone. Most of the webinars that I do for the Asia Pacific region, I'm doing, you know, either very late at night when everybody else has left the office. Professionalism means that we have to work within the restraints of our client. The other thing is that you have to get more curious about the business. So because we're talking specifically about the meetings business right now, and many of you dance on the revenue line in many different areas. You know, we want business on the weekend. If we've got more of a resort setting, that's all fine. We're not going to worry right now, or this sales, you know, webinar is not about the leisure customer at this point. This is about the meetings customer. And so I would challenge you, are you reading some of the CVent white papers that are out there on strategic meetings management? Are you reading what's on the IACC website about the profitability and the ROI of using an IACC certified hotel and conference center? You have to be a lifetime learner and not just that order taker that's going to just answer the phone, take the inquiry, and be able to move. So one of the things I would like you to do is I would like you to write down 1 or 2 things right now that has changed in your market segments, has changed within your communities, in your booking communities. 1 or 2 things that have changed dramatically in 2014 versus 2013. And I would like you to take a moment and just do that. And you can keep it on mute, but I want you to talk about what's changed. Take 1 minute or 2. You can talk to your fellow people if you're working in groups. If you're here on the call by yourself, just take a note and write it down. Okay, so I will come back to that, and I will call on some of you individually. So as we continue on this, I want you to remember, if you want to chat with me or you want anything, on the right-hand side of your screen, there is a chat box, and you'll probably send it to Mark because that's the organizer. It'll say, but I'll be the one that gets it, and I'll look at that. So by any means, during this entire session, you can reach out to us via the chat box to ask some questions. So the one thing that I always chuckle at is that many people only look at big thing changes. I mean, they look at big things. Let's say C.B. Richard Ellis is a big company that's next door to you, or Goldman Sachs, or Deloitte, and they move and they leave Sydney and they go to Melbourne, or they leave Singapore and they move to, Hong Kong. And people look at some of the big stuff, but if you don't look at the little stuff along the way, you actually miss much of the big things. So we want to be able to focus on what is happening in our environment and what the consumer is looking for. So let's take a moment and talk a little bit about the mindset of the corporate attendee, of the meeting planner. There is no joke that, and regardless of what region of the world you're in, the Gen X and the millennial client is extremely different. I'm probably talking to a lot of Gen X and millennial salespeople. But typically, and when IACC was founded, we were founded on the premise that the corporate training environment was very much in the pods and the classrooms and very, we have the table set up in the theater. Well, we now know that the environment is evolving, and the way in which these customers work is completely different. They don't even have offices with the typical desk. Well, IACC is changing that as well. There's many of the IACC properties that have all the cubes and the fun mod chairs and the new setup. So when you think about the conference centers that are a part of IACC, they are truly about a trusted meeting environment. It's not about old-fashioned. It's not about the way that we used to do setups. It's about being dedicated to the environment and to the meeting and to the professional support, because it doesn't matter how cool you are and how you can have all your PowerPoints on your, small device, how you do everything on your tablet, and how, you don't use a laptop. It doesn't matter, because you still need to be able to project that up on a screen so other people will be able to look at it. Our job as a part of IACC is to help educate our customers on what we provide in our center versus what everybody else provides. So I want to take a moment and also talk a little bit about that meetings experience, and even using the word experience is important. Because I do spend my life on the road, and I am moving from one conference center to one hotel to one corporate center, because we're training, if you think about Aramark and you think about some of the big, companies like, Goldman Sachs, for instance, and we do a lot with their meetings teams in New York City, and the American Express, who's just moved a lot of their corporate office down to Battery Park in New York City. All of those types of customers are looking for the best possible experience when they're having a meeting. They do not want to have glitches. And every time I'm in a non-IACC certified property, we have glitches. We have technology that's outdated. We have, whiteboards that they don't have markers that work. We can't, hang things on the wall. So when you think about being a part of the International Association of Conference Centers, who for over all these years has been specializing in providing an exceptional meeting experience globally. And I think this is also very important. At the IACC meeting this year in LA, after I did one of the speeches, but one of the breakouts that we were in, I had several people saying, this is amazing because, we're an independent property, and now I actually have the ability to cross-sell with all my other IACC, sister properties. But that doesn't work if we're not reaching across the pond, if we're not reaching across from DC to Paris to Singapore to Sydney, and making sure that we're talking with one another and helping share leads and experiences and sharing these best practices. A couple other bits I'd like to just focus on when it comes to the meeting experience is the inspiration that should absolutely be the buzz at your property. No one should walk into our conference centers and have a feeling of stale, have a feeling of old. It doesn't matter if you don't have brand new equipment, because you can still have a buzz with the employees. It doesn't matter if you have all the cool new little mod chairs. You may still have the typical conference chairs or the pods, but it's the way you set things up. It's the way your conference planning team is talking to the customer about how we will deliver the highest quality for this meeting. That is part of that buzz. So, as all of you know, you would not be on this call if you weren't part of IACC, and IACC has standards. To be a member of this IACC collection, you cannot just be an also-ran. You have to be the best. So many of these Marriotts and Hyatts and Hiltons they're also ran a Hilton, but I also run a conference center. So we have a conference center over here. Our owners, bought this other building, and they made it a conference center. You want to make sure in your sales delivery, in your sales process, that you keep those standards and those practices up to date by engaging with your meeting planners and conducting your own research. The best thing you can do is have focus groups with meeting planners in your own communities and ask them what is working, what is changing, what is hot, what is not, and sending that into Mark so that as IACC continues to evolve and continue to grow, we have more research that we're able to share with our existing members and new members. But more importantly, you have to make sure the salespeople are educating the customer on that IACC difference the entire way. So one of the things I thought I would relate to is how everybody is all about, 5 diamond and 5 star and all these different ratings that are out there, and every time you turn around, now TripAdvisor has a different one, Cvent has a new one. I mean, even Facebook has a new travel rating site. So when I think about how sales professionals in a luxury hotel use the results of their 5 stars, they really do play it up. Well, I will share with you that when you look at what these professional inspectors are doing and traveling the globe, we have some of the most stringent guidelines and standards to be an IACC. So what you have to do is be proud out loud. Just like the 97 5-star hotels worldwide that, that are proud of getting the Forbes Travel Guide, being in the Forbes Travel Guide. You have to be proud out loud of everything that we offer and how we set ourselves apart. When you think about the difference, so what? What do we do? Well, we have so much going for us, but if we are not sharing that on a regular basis, what is the difference between our conference center and the other one that you're looking at? What is the observable difference, truly? So what I would like to do is I want to go back to the question that I asked, and I would like you to tell me what are some things that have changed since 2013 to 2014. And you can take yourself off mute to answer and then just put yourself back on mute. So let me put it out there. Let me hear from somebody from Lansmore. Hello? Is Lansmore on? Hopefully I didn't lose everyone. Mark, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can, loud and clear, Cindy.
Okay.
I think Lance Moore just put a hand signal up on the screen, so I'm wondering if there's going to be something that might get typed in to the box there, but I'll keep an eye on it.
Okay, perfect. All right, then let's go ahead and let's see. We have, let me see who else we could get. MGSM?
Okay, it's Peter from MGSM, but I would prefer one of my team in the room to respond to it.
Okay.
Megna, can you come online and respond?
Yeah, Peter, so we think that, people are more conscious about, the seating style, the space, the layout in the room. So like, more working luncheons, they're time poor, so they're wanting everything, in a day to be able to have, the data package to have a working luncheon. The seating style, for example, they don't want tables in the room, for leadership programs. So more casual style, more networking.
Okay, so what I heard was the layout of the room for working luncheons, but they want some casual seating as well.
That's right.
Okay, all right, perfect. I'll have you go ahead and put me back on mute, and I'll chat about that one, and then if we get Lance Moore, they can come on as well. So I thank you for that. That's a perfect example. And again, the reason I'm trying to have you all engage is to use some of the very good examples. So number one of the big parts of meetings today is that people really are curious for change. So what we're seeing in food and beverage is so completely different than we saw even a couple years ago. People may not want to go to the conference dining room. They may not want to go into the big buffet. But so what we have to do is get curious with them about some of the things that we can do in their space. There's all sorts of things like a big lazy Susan on a table where they may decide we're going to move over here and we're still going to have a working lunch, but we're going to sit around this lazy Susan, just like you see done in Asia in many places where you sit and the sushi's going by on the little moving walkway. And there's a lot of creative food and beverage things we can do. So our idea is that you have to continue to work with operations and get away from, it doesn't mean we're getting away from the conference dining if they don't want that, but if you have groups that want something different, in a real easy way, we can create some very fun, almost like when they're at university, kind of, exciting things to do. And that's kind of some of those goals that we're talking about as far as change. The reason I want you all to get curious for change is that anything and everything that is coming out from the client, you need to talk about in your morning briefings. And if you're not doing morning briefings, then you should be. So it should be every morning, lineup, whatever you want to call it. We want to be able to say, yesterday, I talked to a customer and they want to have all big beanbag chairs and they want big cushy chairs and they don't want to have any tables, but then they want to have lunch. Well, then they may want to have picnic lunches or lower things. Anything you're renting, you want to look at how you can even buy some of these things that then you continue to sell for somebody else. But the one thing we don't want to do is get into, well, we don't do it that way, this is our policy. So we'll come back to some of these, and I think, let me see, is the hand up? I think I see a hand. Did you see a hand there, Mark? No.
Yes, Cynthia had a hand up, but I think that hand's just gone down.
Yes, Cynthia, did you have something? No? Okay. All right. Well, if you do, let us know, and we'll come right back to you. So the other big part of how customers are doing business is how they're booking. And we know that although we want to make sure that we have the ability to talk to customers, everything is being booked online. There's a lot more RFPs, a lot of the tools, the different booking sources, and the consumer as I mentioned, a very colorful individual. I mean, they want to be able to have instant gratification. But when I look back, I almost have to chuckle. I mean, you know, it's only been 7 years since the iPhone was introduced and only 10 years since Facebook, and we've just celebrated 25 years of the Internet, and now the world is dependent on technology completely. So, oh, there's Cynthia. She says, we are having difficulties with our microphone. One of our challenges, what did she say? Click to read. One of our challenges is the current market. Okay, I'll come right to you, Cynthia. I'll finish this slide, and I'll come to you to answer your question. Even when you look at mobile phones, even when you look at the way people book, so I want you to also challenge each other in how easy we make it operationally. You know, the days of just BEOs and resumes and having the old-fashioned you know, meetings with the chef to go over things. We want to make sure that our team is equipped with as much current technology so that, you know, our planners, our event managers, our conference planners, you know, even if we have to share 1 or 2 iPads, are walking around and they can immediately access room layouts and BEOs so they can talk to a meeting planner and engage, because everybody is changing. They're not having big papers and binders and you know, all the different setups. So you want to make sure that you're living that same sort of colorful life at the same time. So let me go back to Cynthia. Cynthia said, one of our challenges is the current market and competing with big companies who've invested in their internal conference and training facilities. We need to demonstrate to our clients the value of off-site conferencing, and that's exactly it. So I'm going to continue on that, Cynthia, because when you're dealing with these big companies that have deeper pockets, some of them do, especially if they're part of a big global international type of chain, they're able to continue to, you know, renovate and update. I want to go back to what I said earlier. Much of our IACC difference is in our ability to be subject matter experts when it comes to meetings and strategic meetings management and knowing what this customer is really looking for. So again, I'm going to back up to that millennial generation, because if you haven't seen any of the new ads, and you may not have, I don't know if you, I mean, they're just hitting now, but Marriott is about to open its 4,000th hotel. They're one of their largest hotels in New York City, and it's number 4,000. Obviously, they are one of the biggest, you know, hotel companies out there, along with Starwood and, you know, IHG and Hilton. But one of the things they're doing is they have Moxie is one of their brand new brands that they're taking to Asia, and it's all about the younger generation. It's similar to what Ian Schrager, if you listen to any of the past in the news, did with some of the fun boutique hotels when they started. But this is all about the corporate business traveler that is that younger generation that is making up about 34% of the working population today. And you have to know that this luxury global consumer is young. They like to sit at tables where a lot of other people sit. So I'm going to go back to my comment about if somebody wants kind of an informal working lunch and they don't really want to be at a table, we've got to take our conference dining, and even with our existing tables and our existing buffet or our existing whatever, we have got to work as a team and make it look cooler, more fun, more exciting, and you can do that with your food and beverage team in a very simple way. You know, you've got to have, you know, if you're in an area that, you know, you've got the candies and the sweets out, well, what are you doing to make that look better? And this is really very important. You cannot set up coffee breaks the way a typical hotel sets up coffee breaks and consider that you are an IACC certified property, because all you're doing is you are destroying the IACC difference every single time you do that. And part of that will absolutely combat those newer properties that are actually trying to steal business away from you. There's also this new younger client that is less familiar. They don't even know what IAC is. So if you're not connecting with your individual travelers, so when you've got meetings in your hotel, your job is to get out there and work the room. And I am dead serious. And don't say that this is an American strategy. It is not. This is a sales strategy. You need to be in the lobbies, at the coffee breaks, in the conference dining, talking with people, engaging with people. I do it all day long. And remember, I'm on property 2 every single week. And I do not sit in my own little table. I get up, I walk around, I randomly talk to people. Are you enjoying your lunch? Is there anything we can get for you? I'm not even wearing a name tag, and I'm engaging. People remember this because you've got to start educating people so they spread the word. You have to make sure your social media and your social selling is very much up to speed so that you're bringing people to the IAC website. Every time you're talking to a client, bring them to the IAC website and say, I want to share with you why we're different. I know you're looking at the Marriott or the Hilton, and I know they've got great conference facilities. Let me show you the difference in what we provide. And the website will help you show some of that difference. Pricing. There isn't a procurement team out there today in any country in the world that is not struggling with the meetings matrix and the budget. Strategic meetings management is the #1 buzzword that is hitting the entire industry. We have transparent pricing and easy delegate packaging. Now here's where some of you may say, no, because the package, we don't break down the package. I know that. And neither does the regular hotel that says the meeting room charge is going to be $2,500 US. Well, what do I get for the meeting room? Well, you get the meeting room, and we'll turn on the air conditioning, and you'll get lights. Well, I want morning and afternoon coffee breaks. Well, that will be this. See, every hotel out there has been charged with improving the overall revenue per available delegate. So they have to get meeting room charge. Our ability to do this with one-stop shopping with one price is easier for a customer to get their head around. Your technology, the way you set up meeting rooms, the fact that you don't and you shouldn't, especially during the day. It doesn't mean that you're not going after social business. I know you do. But we're smart enough not to put the loud, yoo-hoo, ha-ha, woo-hoo, luncheon next to the big Goldman Sachs lunch at the same time. I want to go back to food and beverage because I do believe that food and beverage is a deal breaker with some of our conference centers. I think that early on, we did a very good job in the delegate dining, okay, the conference dining. I think that fast forward, up until a few years ago, in many of the conference centers, it got a little blasé. Not all of them, but some of them. It was like cafeteria. It was run it in, run it out. We are now seeing, and you saw this if you were, with IAC, and you look at the cook-offs, and you look at some of our Iron Chef competitions and some of the things that are going on. The dining and service is definitely, with IAC versus a non-IAC conference center, a cut above. Our global chef, if you're not going on the site and being proud out loud, because again, you're not with a huge brand. You're with your own brand in your own community in Sydney or Melbourne or Singapore. You want to be part of a global brand, and the global brand is being part of the International Association of Conference Centers. It's just like the small luxury hotels that run around and say, well, we're part of, small luxury hotels of the world or leading hotels worldwide. They use that as their brand, and all it is an association with standards, and they really do use the strength and the power of that brand. Well, that's what you have to do. You have to continue to drive international awareness, even if you're only dealing with customers that are coming from your own backyard, they still are international customers in many cases that understand what's different out there. So when I look at our brand and I look at IACC, I look at it as one goal, one vision. You want to be able to talk through this with a client. If a client says to you, well, what's the difference? Well, I can share with you that you can expect and demand a really hospitable type of environment at our venue. If you're at an IACC certified meeting venue, we have standards that our staff has to be trained, that we have a passion of people that deliver a very innovative and cultural service that's very culturally aware. And you have to be able to, if you don't know where all the IACC certified properties are and you're not talking about those, it doesn't make for a very good conversation when you're up against an international brand like a Marriott or a Hyatt that has 12 different types of brands, the Andaz and the Mosaic and the Edition and the Autograph, and every time you turn around, they're creating a new brand to go after this same customer. So we want to be able to capitalize on the strength of that story. So I want to talk a bit about storytelling, and I want to get your head around it. In sales training, we refer to this as the features and the adjectives and the benefits. But each of you listening right now have plenty of stories. You have stories on where the hotel sits, where the conference center sits, if you have outdoor, some of you have more of the resort conference center, outdoor venues, on water, golf courses, team building activities, all sorts of things. Well, what's your story? I want you to think about the art. If you have art around your property, what's the story? I want you to think about the founders of your own property. What's the story? I want you to think about the founders of IACC and the history and the evolution of IACC. What's the story? People buy stories, and you individually have got to become a storyteller. You cannot talk to a customer and say, well, we have 100 bedrooms, we have 30,000, or however many square meters of space, and we've got a great chef, an award-winning chef. What award? Where do we source our food? How many people touch the salmon that we serve? What type of seafood are we serving in Sydney that, the fisherman touches it and then we touch it? What is the story of our pastry chef? You have to make sure that your ideas bounce right off the passion and the heart and soul of the customers you're talking to. Do you really have what it takes for that client to embrace what you're selling? So let's look at the sales process for a moment. There is a way to look at building rapport today that is way more than, as I call it, kumbaya. You have to connect in a different way. Of course, we have RFPs. Of course, we have important information that we've got to share via, the internet. But what you have to do is think about how you connect, the connection. You get an RFP. Do you immediately do you call the customer? Do you say, I got your RFP. I got your RFP, and I want to be able to follow up with you. Do you know who you're competing against? Do you know what the competition is offering? If you're not asking some of these basic questions, it's going to be very difficult to deliver that passion and embellish those features and tell those stories. Very difficult. So one of the things that we find is extremely important is that you have to know the observable differences between you and the competition. So my challenge to you right here is that you go out and you literally create a SWOT analysis, which I know you're all very familiar with that, but you do it and you do it twice a year. And you do the strengths of your center versus the strengths of your top 3 or 4 competitors. Not just what you get in StarSite and all your comp set, but who you really, really are competing with. You may be competing with a private club. So I want you to do it with who you're competing with, the strengths. I want you to think about their weaknesses and don't just, make them up. I want what has the customer told you about their weaknesses? What are some of the opportunities and what are some of the real threats? And then I want you to come up with stories on how you sell against them. I will give you an example. Yesterday, I was working on a military base that is selling against all the hotels in the area. And there's a big museum, a big military museum that is gorgeous, much newer than the base. And they bring their food. They are an hour outside of Washington, D.C., and the food is catered from a caterer in Washington, D.C., where if you book your event on the military base, all the food is made right there. And they've never came out loud and said to a client, I know you're looking at us in the museum, but do you realize where the food comes from? They were too nervous. Well, we don't want to say that. I said, really? Well, there's no kitchen in the museum. There's nowhere to dish up or plate up. There's nowhere to keep things hot. It comes in catering trucks, and it comes an hour away with traffic from the city center of Washington, D.C. So we had to practice saying, I know you're looking at X, Y, Z, and I know you're looking at us. Let me share with you the observable differences. I'm not being unprofessional. I'm not slamming them and mudslinging. I'm telling the truth. The customer wants to have great food. And if they're going to get food from me, it's going to be fresh, and it's going to be warm, and it's going to be good. I'm going way beyond the dates, the rates, and the space. The dates, the rates, and the space. I'm going way beyond that. And you have to get good at going beyond that as well. You cannot just sell the features of your center. So when you look at those features, adjectives, and benefits, those unique selling points, some of you may call them USPs, whatever you call them, if you're not selling against your competitors and using the IACC difference, then you're missing the mark because they don't have that IACC difference. They don't have the ability. They can say, and many of them don't even have the stars or the diamonds or any of that. They might be lead certified, they might be this, they might be that, but you've got to be able to point this out. So your perfect pitch, your perfect presentation is always very well planned out, but it's not a robot. It always connects with the customer. So I said the number one part of the selling is connecting. The number 2 is collaborative. You got to collaborate if you want to convince. How do you convince somebody that you're going to meet their needs if you're not telling a story that makes somebody go, wow, you're kidding? Well, I didn't know that. I didn't know that they don't have their own food. I didn't know that they have to bring that in. If you're going to be running an event on the golf course or out on a picnic area, you've got to be able to tell them, we do this every day. We do, team building out here for our clients. You're creating a memory because you're telling a story that stands out. You see, it only takes a few seconds to make or break that moment of truth when the customer says, am I going to continue to listen? I want to read this slide just as it is because I do believe it has a lot of merit to it. When the speed of sound travels at the speed of light, when how you're perceived and whether or not you're accepted is forged on what you say, it's crucial to deliver your message concisely and confidently. We live and communicate in a hyper, fast-pitched world, so you need to get this message across fast. The average number of words a man speaks a day is 7,000. A woman, shocking, 20,000. There's 140 characters in a tweet, 9 seconds for a Vine video or a Snapchat. There's only 130 characters in a Google text ad, and most people around the globe are reading, sadly, at about an 8th grade reading level. So I want you to think about our focus. How can I really differentiate the IACC difference? First and foremost, define it. Know it. know the standards, know the service, use the website. How are you going to drive sales in 2014? You've got to have a buzz. You should be posting on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn every single day, showing the IAC difference, getting the buzz, showing a setup, showing a really cool continuous coffee break, showing an unbelievable chili cook-off that you're doing out on the patio for somebody. You've got to meet those customer needs by maximizing those customer relationships, by connecting, by collaborating, and by convincing them that you're better than everybody else. You have to do that SWOT analysis to sell against every non-IAC property. Be proud out loud. This is a designation that you had to work toward, you paid for, you've complied to these standards, and remember, everyone today looks at standards and makes a judgment call. Manage the expectations of the multiple decision makers that are out there and make sure that you're sharing the difference when it comes to the value you add by the CMP. You know that you can do individual pricing should you need that, but show the comparative differences and be able to show how our value comes into play. I love to be able to show a client the biggest difference from our salespeople and our planning team when working with IAC. A conference center is a single source. There isn't a hotel out there, and I will challenge any of them, and I work with them, that will tell you they will say they're one-stop shop, and they never are. They work with somebody on catering, somebody on IT, somebody on, the outsourced AV company. If they have to do outside catering, they're bringing in DMCs. The meeting experience is first, and our social business is second. We're not saying that we don't have social business, but we have it first. Our first and foremost goal is the meeting experience. For hotels, the most important thing to them is heads and beds and filling those rooms. Our customers can customize their own experience, CMP or not, where in a hotel it's standardized. The sales process all revolves around RevPAR. It all revolves around the owner and making sure we're filling those guest rooms. We have ease in billing, and I will challenge, because I want hotels to have ease in billing, but they can't, they're tripping over dimes to get to pennies. They are not transparent. There's hidden costs in there. The other day, I had a client say to me, a leisure, I train a lot of travel agents, as many of you might know. A virtuoso travel agent said to me, I want to show you how this billing came from a luxury hotel. On a Monday, they had a $600 rate. On a Tuesday, they had a $495 rate. On a Wednesday, they had a $320 rate. On Thursday, it went back to $600. And what they're doing is they're trying to be able to show their owners their RevPAR when they look at StarSite and they look at where they are in their comp set. We are looking at a single type of billing. We have updated AV and on-site support where 90% of your competitor hotels have outsourced to PSAV or to whatever local, AV company is in your city. We have longevity. We have years in the professional meetings industry, and they have high turnover, especially on the catering side of the business. If you look at our design, we have created a well-thought-out and well-produced product. We have purposely built these conference centers so that our desks and our chairs and our technology is so much better. You have hotels still with banquet chairs and portable screens and flip charts and stackable and draped tables that are so uncomfortable for anybody to have a meeting at. Our food and beverage. Again, I'm going to say honestly, years ago, I don't think our food and beverage was that great in some of the conference centers. Today, that's not the case. We have unbelievable chefs. We have dedicated conference dining. So if people want to get out fast, they can go in, they can get their conference dining. But yet, we also have the ability to customize some phenomenal theme menus. We have continuous breaks that are fresh, not the stale pastry and the a la carte coffee breaks that are just sitting in the conference room. And you want to use these PowerPoint notes that I'm using here right now. We'll make sure that you have a copy of these because these are perfect. You have to also remember size doesn't matter, okay? Way beyond the basics. Some of our benefits is how we fit things into scale, how we align and assign our hotels to do things that are so beyond the basics and the benefits, how we follow up, how we have ongoing everyday, communication with our facilitator. That's because we have a designated conference planner and the on-site technology and the maintenance of these rooms. So when you think about all the things that we are doing differently, we have got to maximize our resources in order to sell more effectively for 2014. I said every day, you have got to be on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. And do not sit there and say, well, we have a PR person that does it. I'm here to tell you people are connecting with people. There is a sales manager in London at a property that every day she puts on, welcome to my office today, and it's a new site. There's a picture of a duck on a pond outside her conference center. There's a picture of her commute in with all the green trees or the spring. People love it. When she doesn't post, I see meeting planners saying, where are you? We do want to get FaceTime. Let's get them on the property, and when they're on the property, let's share with them. Let me tell you the differences between us and everyone else. Let's network within our property as well as outside. Work those coffee breaks, work those luncheons to get referrals. Work every committee and chamber and bureau and share best practices in your own country, in your own city, in Sydney, in Melbourne, in Singapore. Make sure that you're having calls yourself. Set it up. Say, let's have an IACC call and let's talk about some of the best practices we're seeing. We know that some of the key challenges that are facing you are price and selling against non-properties and managing these expectations. But I will tell you that everyone you're competing with is selling against some of those same objections. But if you use the benefits, price resistance will always be huge whether I'm selling a package or not. Moving conversation away from the package, it's just like selling anything. You don't talk price first. You sell the value of your features and your benefits. You describe how you operate. You talk about the differences, and you say price for last whenever possible. Study your competitive set. Make sure you know if they're not IACC certified, because sometimes we are competing with another conference center, show those observable differences that I've just talked about. Understand their a la carte type of pricing. And if we lose a piece of business, be a hound dog at asking why we lost it. Take the top knocks. Say to them, I really want to know, was it my proposal? Was it my pricing? So that we can share it with the team so we know how to continue to package the pricing element that much better. Remember, when you are selling the package, you want to facilitate meeting their budget and their expenses. Often, it's way less expensive than an a la carte pricing, and it definitely is consistent with the guarantees. To the property, obviously, it's so much better, and it makes our lives that much easier in selling the CMP. But we never talk about what's in it for us, but only what's in it for them. But to you, the ownership of the sales process. I know that it's much easier to talk about one price when I'm talking to a client than nickel and diming them. It helps me build a better relationship, and it gives much more return on my investment. So I love to show a comparative analysis. And you need, as you do the SWOT analysis, to create your own competitive and comparative analysis of the traditional hotels in your own market segment and what they charge versus the conference centers. What's included? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at, here we go. This is what the traditional hotel charges. This is what we're charging. We're charging $249, and that includes all of this. They're charging $276, and that includes all of this. The facts are the facts, and you have to be able to feel strong about how you tell that story, because that's, quite frankly, a way to convince. You connect, you collaborate, and you convince. And if you do that, it's way better than talking price first, because if it's price alone, we have no business even being on this call. Remember, if price were the only reason people bought things, none of us would be here today. There is a difference with IACC. There is a difference. If you've got to take your operational team and rewire some things and reboot and challenge the operations, food and beverage, and banquet setup and conference setup, then you do that. But from the sales side of the business, we absolutely have a story to tell, but you can't tell the story unless you share the backstory. And our backstory has credibility, our backstory has passion, our backstory is fiscally responsible to the end user and to the meeting planner. And with that, I will go ahead, open it up. We are right at our hour. If there's any questions, anything Mark would like to add, or Peter, I thank you very much for your time, and I hope this was helpful. Did I lose everyone? Did you all go home?
No, I'm coming in now. It's Peter.
Okay, Peter.
I just want to say, Cindy, thank you to you. For those on the call who have never experienced Cindy before, Cindy, as she indicated earlier, has been a part of IACC since inception, and she's a regular presenter at our conferences, and as an organisation, we're delighted that she's agreed to work with us on our webinar series this year and into the future. And I know that my team will have got a lot from it. I know that everyone else would have, because I even realised some of those things along the way, and I've heard you many times, Cindy. So thank you from us.
Oh, thank you. And I'm getting a lot of little notes that people are saying very helpful, that it was very informative.
Indeed.
Cindy, this is Mark, and again, just to reiterate, thank you very much for that. And for everyone on the call today, I think we'll all go away with that. Be proud out loud, saying, and it'll be resonating in our ears today. So that was great. Everyone, I hope you found today's webinar, to be valuable. I hope it's inspired you to really use and leverage your IACC membership, in a different way to help you win business. We value your feedback. There's an opportunity to leave feedback via the GoToMeeting session. We would really like to hear from you with any further feedback that you've got. And also just to let you know that there will be a date coming soon, and it's likely to be in Melbourne, where we'll be delivering the in conjunction with Cindy, with Master Connections, 2 one-day seminars, which are the Power Pitch and the Secrets of Sales. So we haven't quite finalized dates at this stage. We're working really hard, and I would say and hope within the next week we'll be sending you a notice just to let you know of that face-to-face learning opportunity to allow you to take today and take it to the next level.
Great. And Mark, just a note to you, I do recognise it's probably, about 3 a.m. there now.
The only disappointing thing is there's no customers awake at this time in the morning for me to go and sell the IACC difference to, Peter. That's the most frustrating thing.
And you'll be in the office at 9 a.m., I'm sure.
We have a conference call in 3 hours, don't we?
Yes.
See, that's the IACC difference right there.
I agree. Okay, again, thank you all. I'm off for another meeting. Cheers.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and we will go ahead and sign out. I'll stop recording, and then, Mark, we can get these, this PowerPoint can be sent to everyone so they can have it.
We absolutely will. Thank you very much, Cindy. Thank you, Shelley, and Adam, and all our members. Bye for now.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Have a good rest of your sleep time. Cheers to
Awesome.
everybody.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye, Cindy.
Bye. Bye.